Hello, and welcome back to The Creatives, everybody. I'll be your host, Ramsey, joined today by Mr. Christoper Snow, who is a director of photography and cinematographer. They're the same thing, aren't they?
Same thing.
DOP, cinematographer.
Glorified videographer, if you will. It's a self-proclaimed cinematographer. DOP.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Well, yeah, so we're joined today by Mr. Chris Snow, and this is episode 17 of The Creatives. The Creatives Podcast is a show where we explore creativity through conversation, and we've had some very excellent conversations along the way, and there's so many more that have yet to happen, and I'm excited for our conversation today. Kind of gonna dive into what you do, who you are, how you do it, and I'm looking forward to it, Chris.
Me too.
Yeah, nice. Well, welcome. Before we dive in, I want to let you know, the viewers, the listeners, that we are sponsored by Midnight Hour Studios, which is where we're recording today. This is a studio rental facility. You can rent this place and build your own sets, and Midnight Hour Studios has graciously given you a discount, which will be in the description of this. You can find their website and all of that information down below. Again, big shout out to our editor, Ryan, who's been working hard to get these episodes out on time. And a big thank you to you for listening, because we're making these for you. I mean, for us, they're fun to make, but also I hope they bring you value, and I hope they inspire you to create. So without further ado, Chris, I'll tell you a little bit about the show, how it started, how we got here, and then we'll kind of dive into you. So the Creatives Podcast started as like a little side project. It was an idea in my head. I was doing lots of video production, and I wanted to get into like kind of content creation and making like YouTube videos, and it wasn't exactly what I was best at, but I liked conversation. I liked lighting. I liked audio, all this stuff. So podcasting made sense. So the Creatives came to be when I saw that there was so many creative people in the city, and I just wanted to know what they were up to, how they were doing things, how they were thinking, what they were challenged by, and it just kind of materialized into this thing. And here we are now, 17 episodes later, chatting with you. It's a lot of people in and around any like video production, design, creative, just all sorts of stuff. So to kick it off, I want to ask you, Chris, what does creativity mean to you?
That's a question.
Right off the bat.
Man, creativity is so much. I guess, I mean, without sounding too corny, creativity is kind of what gets you out of bed every day, what gets me out of bed every day.
Nice.
Maybe it's sort of that sort of like searching for something to create as well. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think I'm talking in circles here, but yeah, it's for me, it kind of equates with this sort of like sense of discomfort. I feel like where I need to do something, and I think creativity fills that sort of gap.
Interesting. With
me. So like maybe not so much a definition of creativity, but more so what creativity is for me.
Like how it plays out in your life.
Yeah.
I'd say unknown, it's like it's exploring kind of.
It's a means of sustenance, self-sustenance.
Interesting.
Almost. Yeah. Like I feed off creativity, and like that's not just being creative, but also being around people who are creative and doing stuff like this, which is really fun.
Nice, man. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. It's cool because it has the textbook definition where it's in the box and it means a certain thing, but I find it's more than that. Like we love to put things in a box, and as a society label stuff as like, this is a cup, this is another cup, this is a book. Like, but I mean, we are dynamic. Humans are weird and dynamic, and like there's so much more to the way we create. Mm-hmm. And it's cool to hear your definition or what it means to you, because then it helps me understand. It helps people understand maybe what it means to them. But I want to ask you, Chris, can you tell me your origin story? How did you end up here?
Okay.
I mean, maybe you drove here today, but how did you end up?
I did drive here today. Yeah.
As a DOP, cinematographer, glorified videographer.
So okay. Basically, way back, let's go to grade 9, 10.
Okay.
My parents were pretty artistic, although my mom was like a civil servant, and my dad was like a sales rep.
Nice.
So they're both kind of somewhat retired. My dad's actually still working in a creative field, which is kind of cool, which we'll get into later.
Nice.
Give them a little plug. But so I was in a grade 9, 10. It was like a 2-year high school media class where the main emphasis was darkroom photography, which was pretty cool. It was like I can't even, how old was I in grade 9? I'm 34. it was like 14, 15, 16, somewhere
What
around.
darkroom photography is that?
Yeah.
Like film?
Yeah, so black and white film photography. So you know, you go out with your, you'd buy your roll of film from the teacher for a discounted price, and then you'd go out and take a bunch of random photos. You'd have like photo assignments like every week, basically.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and the teacher was really cool. She'd like really push you to sort of capture different things, different subject matter, try out different techniques like double exposures. And like you start with the very basics. You'd make like a contact sheet where you lay a bunch of like things that mean something to you out on like a piece of darkroom paper. You'd go into the darkroom, a piece of photo paper, and then you expose it with the enlarger with, no negative in it or anything. It just leaves like an imprint of whatever you put on the paper. It's like the most basic form of photography development. It's like what
there's
they
no
used to
camera
do.
involved.
No camera involved with that. That was just like our first assignment, basically.
Okay, cool.
But anyways, I'm going too in depth into the
No,
past
don't
there,
worry. I like that. I wanted to dive deep into those roots, but yeah, carry on.
I'm gonna tie it all back in together at the end here. But so yeah, then fast forward to Cégep, where like Cégep is the Quebec version of college. It's
okay.
Yeah, you basically go grade
After
11
grade
and
12.
then 2 years of Cégep and then to university. There's no grade 12, it's just grade 11. Yeah.
Okay, so grade 11, then it's like
Yeah.
12, 13, almost grade 12.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But it's more university structured. So like you have university style courses. You have like your classes are structured differently too. It doesn't feel as restrictive as high school did, in my opinion.
So it is a post-secondary
Correct.
thing, right? Okay.
Yeah, you could take nursing and stuff like that. It's like
cool.
Algonquin College even. Yeah.
That's cool.
But I think it's mandatory in Quebec, or at least it's one of those things that
been
people
helpful.
do. Yeah.
I was 17 when I started university. I
Dude,
was
yeah.
confused as shit. Didn't know what I was doing.
I mean, to be fair, I was confused as shit when I got out of Cégep. So anyways, so I took social science in Cégep, no art related stuff really. I basically chased one of my ex-girlfriends to Montreal. I was like, she was like, oh, I'm going to go to McGill. I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll apply to school in Montreal and see if I get in. So I was like, well, I can take photos. So I applied to Concordia.
Nice.
To their BFA for fine arts, photography specific. And I got in somehow.
Cool.
I guess I had an okay portfolio at the time. So
you were using your high school portfolio of film?
Not even. I built one.
You built one?
Yeah,
Okay. Was it all based around film stuff?
No, it was
Or
all digital. Like,
okay.
I wasn't even really doing a whole lot of film.
Interesting.
But the Concordia program is all film.
Okay.
And then it's all art based. So like the extent of like how you make money through that program is like there was a class on writing grants. It wasn't commercial at all. Like there was no commercial instruction or sort of like know-how given to you necessarily is how to be a successful artist, which I think was great too.
That is really cool.
But yeah, film photography is great because I'd say it's like somewhat high consequence and high expense as well. So like you have to get really good at exposing the image and framing and everything, because like you've got like, I don't know, if you're doing medium format, you've got 10 to 12 shots on a roll, and a roll is like $12. And as a student, that's pretty expensive. So
even as an adult, it's pretty expensive.
well, yeah, exactly. Especially when you shoot a lot. Yeah.
I know. I love to shoot film because it slows me down. It's like it forces me to focus on composition and framing and just like, okay, limited shots. They mean more. They are expensive. Yeah. Each shot, couple dollars. And I like what you said about high consequence.
Yeah. And then there's the process of like, it's not only high consequence, but it's a lot of work too, right? So you want to make sure that you nail your initial image as best you can before you go into what limited post-production tools you have in film, at least. Mind you can still scan your negatives and stuff. We did that as well. But so yeah, we did medium format, large format, 35 mil. Cool. I tended to gravitate towards the large format photography just because like I love high resolution stuff and I love big prints. So the video is a bit of a struggle at first when I was like shooting on like 5D Mark IIs at 1080p, like coming from like a high resolution photography world. I was like, this is so not sharp, like,
cause you entered the space when there weren't FX3 Sonys and Red Komodos and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, anyway, so I did university, and then, finished university, didn't really do anything with the arts degree. I just I got it. I was like, cool, I got a university degree. This is great. I have a BFA. What they used to call it in the program is a Bachelor of Football. You can bleep that out if you want.
That's fine.
I'm kidding, but I'm super grateful to have it. And honestly, I think it has helped me like exponentially in terms of how I go about sort of constructing the frame and like perfecting things right off the bat, like getting the best possible image in camera and then bringing that into post so that like not only does it save you a little bit of time in post, it also I think it's just like a testament to like your skill if you're able to do that and not have to do too much damage control.
I was going to ask you about, because I saw on your kind of bio on your website about how you went to Concordia and you worked with all sorts of film. I was going to ask you how that translates to digital, and you kind of answered that, but can you elaborate a little more on that, how the high consequence nature and the kind of, you know, like there's a finite amount of shots in the film world, and there's a whole bunch of things that make it different than digital. How has that translated to your work in the digital space?
Yeah, so I always say like I take it back to like being in the darkroom and like, you know, watching your photo come to life on that piece of like paper when it's in the developer. Like I find when you bring your log footage into like DaVinci Resolve or Premiere Pro or whatever, and then like you know you rec 709, you slap a lot on it really quick just to be like, oh, okay, cool, it's good, you know, like because you get to a certain point where like you know it's going to be good, but I personally, like every time I do a shoot, I get home and I back up my footage like multiple times, and then I drop it into Resolve and I slap a lot on it and I like line everything up in the timeline. I'm like, cool, awesome. Because I also don't like coming back to things that aren't started.
Interesting.
Because I move fast and I do deal in a fairly high volume of shoots. But yeah, so anyways, back the digital analog thing. So that's I think that's where I kind of make that connection, and there's that like a similarity in my brain that, you know, with the developing and whatnot.
Yeah, that's cool. I do the same thing with grading footage. Like I come home, the first thing I do is back up the footage because I'm just terrified.
Well, you have to,
losing stuff, but I do the same thing where I color grade it. I find it's sometimes more fun to edit graded footage.
Oh, me too.
Than it is to edit the log.
Yeah,
I know agree. There's the whole like patience of like it's the last piece of the whole project. After you've done everything, you just color grade it. But I find it sometimes helps me to visualize the final image or like the final product, right?
Yeah, it gets you in the zone a little bit more for
That's
sure.
Cool. So I understand you are a DOP, director of photography, cinematographer. You maybe fill a lot of different hats. Can you tell me a little bit about the work that you do now with video?
Sure, and also I'll take it back to you because my history is actually not done yet.
Oh, it's not. Oh, carry on. Yeah,
it's kind of long, but anyways, so I moved back from Montreal when I met my now wife, and she was running a creative, like a magazine, a publication at the time called Heard Magazine.
Cool.
Which focused on lots of like, you know, arts, music, culture, the various like cool goings on in Ottawa, which I thought was great too, because like I left Ottawa because I was like, ugh, Ottawa, I should go live in Montreal because Montreal is super cool. And coming back to Ottawa, like whatever, 5-6 years later, I was like, holy smokes, there's like so much cool stuff going on. And like, you know, be it the restaurant scene, like music scene, like art scene, craft shows, whatever, what have you. Like there's so many like, I feel like people like myself who like left Ottawa, then came back and did a bunch of cool stuff. And now Ottawa is like fully on the map as far as like cool things go. So I ended up like sliding into a photo editor role for the magazine. So I was like kind of curating all the photography content and, you know, lining up shoots, doing a lot of the shoots myself.
Photo shoots?
Yeah. So I got my start in photography.
Okay.
And then when I started doing more of that too, I went to VizTech and I was like, I'm going to lease a camera. I leased a 6D with a kit lens. And I was like, I'm doing
lease cameras?
Yeah, man. All right, well, you finance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so I did that and I was like, okay, we're doing it. Like we're going in, like, 'cause I was kind of doing like carpentry and stuff like as well. And not, you know, just destroying my hands basically, like mangling myself. 'Cause I'm clumsy and not super good at that kind of thing. Like I love doing it, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not my calling. I don't
still have all 10 fingers, right?
I do for the most part. So yeah, then fast forward a little beyond that, I met Remy, who was on the podcast before, Remy Theriault.
Yeah.
And, I had, because of my film background, he also works heavily in like film photography and the fine arts sort of like side of things, as well as the commercial side, which I thought was super cool. So I met him at some party, and he's like, yeah, man, why don't you come in like, you know, maybe like 1-2 days a week, and like, you know, you can help me like scan my negatives and like, you know, sort of catalog my work. And I was like, oh man, that'd be amazing. You know, he was like, I know how to scan negatives. That's great. So I got in with Remy, and then like, I don't know, it was like a month in, I was working 5-6 days a week for him.
Wow.
And then
was it at the studio in Westboro?
Yeah. This was right around the time where he was opening House of Common.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So he brought me on, and then he taught me so much stuff in the photography realm. And I ended up shooting with him and for him. And then, you know, I can't say enough good things about Remy.
He's a cool dude. I mean, I spent a couple hours with him on the episode we did. It was like episode 13 or 14.
Yeah.
And I just like, he's just a very interesting, dynamic person.
Yeah.
And there's so much, I guess he has so many stories. Like there's so much to learn from Remy. Like I was just sitting there like, oh my goodness, I want to have him back on the show.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much more we didn't even get into.
Tip of the iceberg. But the cool thing too is he's got a teaching degree. So he's a very good teacher, which is something I kind of wish I was better at. I'm very much not necessarily like
good at teaching.
Not good at teaching, at least in like in the moment sort of like.
It's challenging. And I mean, do you know Justin?
Yeah.
JVL, I'm sure. He works, he's worked. So he mentioned like that you don't have to be a teacher, and like we're under the impression that you must teach people how to do stuff if you make stuff, like, because everyone just goes on the internet and says, hey, this is how I did this, and now I'm going to teach you how to get $1 million business and all.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is challenging though. But that's so yeah, back to House of Common, like where you were growing. This was early on in your career. Like was this your first like
really this was when I made the push to be like a full-time photographer. So,
okay, that's cool.
Or assistant and photographer, or whatever.
Or just doing it as a full-time job.
Correct.
Like you were not doing anything
on the side. Yeah.
Cool.
So I worked with Remy for like 5-6 years, and we still shoot together occasionally as well.
That's amazing.
We just did a really cool series of videos for the Ottawa Arts Council, which are like, they're not, well, we kind of frame them for the production as master classes, but they're basically artists sharing skills on like NFTs and like Patreon and stuff like that. And it's a free resource for artists who may not have that knowledge to sort of like dip into. And
that's cool. Is it anyone can access it?
Anyone can access it. Yeah, they're free. They're on the Ottawa Arts Council website.
Cool. I think you put something about it on your.
Yeah, we've been sort of bouncing
Instagram.
it around the social media
stuff. I'll put all of Chris's stuff down below so you can check it out. I love your cinematography. Like I look at your behind the scenes, your stories, your frames, and I'm just like, wow. Like it's so simple. It's seemingly so simple. I know there's a lot of experience and technique that goes into creating the images that you do, but it's really satisfying when you show like we're just in this random meeting room and then you see the frame and you're like, oh my goodness, like it's cool.
Yeah.
Where did you learn cinematography and lighting and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'll continue the history and I'll segue into that because so basically in 2018 when there was that huge sort of like, or 2017, 2018, there was that big cannabis boom where they were going to legalize weed.
Right.
We got contracted by one company and we were working there like 2-3 days a week for like months in a row kind of thing. And that's when we really started filming a lot of video. So there's definitely a lot of trial and error like at the beginning. Because with doing video style stuff, you need proper lights, you need good audio. You can't really half-ass too much stuff. And you know, as much as people say, or like I like to say, it's not necessarily about the gear. With video, it kind of is about the gear to some degree. Like as long as you have a good baseline in terms of like audio capture and like some lights, you can make it work without lights, but you also need to be able to manipulate the light if you have to. So you know, you could do a whole thing with just scrims and negative fill and no lights whatsoever.
Yeah.
But you need to know how to do that, right? So yeah, I think like over the years, I started lighting my video stuff like I lit photography stuff because I was doing both at the same time and like really flat, and like my photography style was very, I don't know, I liked like Kinfolk magazine and stuff like that, and did some fashion stuff as well, but it was always very like a very even, clean, not too much contrast kind of look. Whereas my video style is like exponentially different. Now it's like very moody and very contrasty and like very like I'd say saturated and rich in terms of color, which personally I really like. That was always a thing back in the day with doing photography. Like I always kind of struggled to like find that sort of vibe in photos or create that vibe in photos, where for some reason it's a lot easier with video and
I feel that
cinema style stuff. I don't know why that is, but it clicks a little better.
Yeah, I did start with photography too. That's kind of how I first got a camera in my hand, and then I wasn't doing it for. I still love photography.
Me too.
It's my like it's my side. It's like what I do for fun. Photography, film photography. I love doing it for fun. I do some of it for the work that I do, but it's cool. But video is a never-ending onion of. There's always more to it that you can learn.
Yeah, and I mean, there's tons of like awesome resources out there too, like where you can sort of learn different techniques and stuff like that. funny enough, like I got a lot of my sort of knowledge and know-how from another podcast, like The Wandering DP, which
I've heard of that.
You've probably heard.
I've heard of his YouTube channel. I don't know if he has a podcast.
He's mainly a podcast now.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And he'll have Sky Patrick O'Sullivan. He has other DPs and people in the film world, mainly DPs though, in on the podcast, and he'll talk to them about their process. He also does lighting breakdowns. He has a Patreon as well and stuff, so you can go in and pay and get like paid content that you can follow along with, where he'll explain like how he lit a scene, and he'll fully break down like a commercial shoot for you, and
that's cool
stuff. But he's also created this sort of framework within which that, you know, you can work, and it's very replicable, and you basically identify all the factors you can't control, and then you adapt to that. So every time you walk into a space, you're like, okay, giant window, nothing I can do about that. Especially like in the context of a smaller crew, obviously, which is kind of how I work on a day-to-day. I work with one or two more people.
Right.
You know, we don't necessarily have like, you know, massive cranes or anything. Like we can't beam lights in through the windows. We can't do that. So we're really kind of trying to mitigate a bunch of different factors and make it as controlled and nice looking as we can.
That's cool. So I guess that stresses the importance of a little bit of preparation and location scouting before.
Honestly,
if you can,
not even.
Like, just walk in. Okay, there's a giant window there.
Yeah.
Work with it.
To be fair, like I think the more you do work, the more sort of tools you can sort of put in your toolbox in terms of like, you know, spaces will always share something in common. So you're always working within. There's always going to be something, but I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry.
It's all good.
But yeah, so there's very, very few times there's a location scout or anything like that. There is if it's like kind of more of like a high value shoot, but a lot of times it's really quick. You know, it's based on schedules of like students or professors or like people who have like, you know, like no time to do the things that we're doing and they don't want to be there. So, and I think that's part of the reason why I love it so much is because like you get tossed into the fire like every single day almost, and you have to problem solve like crazy, and you really have to come up with something that that looks good, that sounds good. And I think that's what really keeps me coming back is like that sort of like, you never know what every day is going to hold. Like I love the more produced shoots and stuff, but I do think it's a good muscle to work now and again when you have to go in and just like,
you have a couple things you use frequently, like your main lights and
exactly
sort of tools you shape light with, and then the camera, and then you just go with it.
Yeah,
I like that,
and that's why I too like I put a strong emphasis on like I will make a very like I put a strong emphasis on having the right stuff for me, like the right gear for me. Like I will not compromise anymore in terms of like what I bring to a shoot or what I use. Like I generally use a very similar setup everywhere because I know it'll work in most locations. Yeah. The only thing I'm missing is like a really high power light, which I'm probably going to grab at some point, but
nice.
But yeah, so I usually go in and do like a 2 or 3 point light setup, and mainly with a key, fire up a hair light. Sometimes we'll motivate from like some natural sources that are coming in. It really depends on the space we're in, and again, like how much we can control, like how many windows there are, how many practicals there are there lights that we can't turn off, like,
and how much time you have also.
Exactly,
like,
how much time you have, exactly.
Do we have time to cover 4 lights in the ceiling with gaff tape?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, usually the client's like, okay, we can do like half an hour setup, but like people don't really, you know.
Half an hour is tight. I gave myself half an hour today to set this up. It took a bit longer. That's really cool. So so then what do you do now primarily, like as a DOP? Like, are you just focusing on the camera, lighting, all that stuff? Do you work with a director, or are you kind of still running the show one?
Yeah, so it really depends on the shoot. Like my day-to-day, I'd say like 75% of my work is myself and a camera operator. And I say camera operator, but they're kind of like they do the grip thing. They do an AC, all the stuff basically. So that's not what I'm doing. It's
hard to put the labels of the film. I know that because it's hard to label them based on like the film industry structure when it's like you're DPing, directing, operating, gripping, gaffing, all the stuff.
Exactly. Like I'm even doing a bit of that too. It's like I'm also like a very hands-on person. Like I like operating, and I like lights. I like setting up things. Like I'm never going to be one of those persons who's like, go there, do that, do this. I can't. I can delegate, but like, man, I just love doing it. Like,
it's fun, like throwing up a C-stand,
exactly,
like, all the way up. You know, it's just like cool. Hope it doesn't fall, but no,
Yeah, like I'm a very technical, gear-oriented person.
That's
Even
cool.
in university too, that was like my thing. Like I was never very good at like conceptualizing necessarily, but I was always like, this is like a technical exploration of like a large format camera. And the teachers were like, okay, cool. Like, tell us about your feelings. And I was like, okay, well. Anyways, so
That's funny, man.
yeah, I've always been like a bit of a gearhead and stuff. And when I first did so I shot with like DSLRs and stuff too. Mirrorless cameras. I basically went like Canon or
T7?
no,
Rebels?
60s. Sorry, 5D Mark III 60.
Yeah.
Then I went to a GH4 because I wanted to shoot 4K. Then I quickly switched from the GH4 to the A7S2. I think it was the A7S2.
Yeah, I remember that camera. That was when I was getting in. That camera was big.
That was wild. That camera was really good. And then I went from that to a C200.
Okay. Straight to Cine? Is
Yeah,
that a
right to
Cine cam, the
camera.
C200?
Yeah. It's a great cinema camera that they're actually blowing out right now because they're I guess they're going to release a bunch of new stuff, Canon, but that camera was great, and it like the stuff like that I was shooting looked really good, and it was the first time I had like a dedicated like video camera that was like super functional, like with built-in ND filters, XLR ports, all that stuff, right? So you get, you spend a bunch of money to get these things that make your life so much easier, and like you're not dealing with all these peripherals.
Yeah.
And then and then after that I had a couple C70s, and then I now have a red Komodo, which I went back to making my life more difficult.
And accumulating copious amounts of footage.
You know what? It's not that bad because they have like a low bit rate raw codec now. Like
really?
Extra low quality, but it's honestly so good. Like,
that's
like
cool.
It still has like so much latitude. It's like, it's wild.
The Komodo's a cool looking camera.
Yeah.
It's the form factor is very intriguing for me, and I like the box.
It is very cool. Like when I pulled it out of the box, I was like, oh, this is pretty nifty.
Yeah.
Like,
Are
it's
you
like
happy
a
with it?
cube. Yeah. So far, man, I'm very happy. Like again, like I like to fight complacency a little bit because I think it's really easy to get stuck in like a safe spot where, I mean, this is just me justifying this purchase to myself, but where you get where you get stuck in like a safe spot where like you're doing something that's like very replicable, and like you can basically do it with your eyes closed, and like working with like the Canon workflow and stuff like that, having the built-in NDs, having like all the audio support and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also being able to record for really long times, like not necessarily having to think too much about like the process. I mean, you can still light and do all that stuff. Like you still get that vibe, but so switching to red, I feel like the things that I'm doing feel a little bit more intentional, and like, I'm sorry if this gets too bullshitty, but just there's a certain, it's almost again kind of like working with film photography because you are shooting in such a high bitrate codec, like you are using a lot of data. You have to use a lot of peripherals to get your thing to work properly. Like you need a matte box with like ND filters in it. You need to have a peripheral audio recording device. Say that 10 times.
There's no mic in it, right?
There's like a crappy like
just for scratch audio.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, I bought a Zoom F3 and it's killer. Like it's got 32-bit float audio, so you can yell into it and it won't clip.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, and you can just fire that into the camera, and honestly, like it's much heavier as a package too because I'm running V-mount batteries on it with my cinema lenses and the matte box and all that jazz. So the handheld footage that I'm doing, because the majority of like my B-roll is shot handheld as well, because I like that vibe.
Same.
And I feel so restricted every time, even when I'm wearing like an easy rig. I feel like I can't get the shots that I want to get. I feel like there's just too much going on around me. Like I just need to like just get a little bit lower, or like a little bit closer, like a little bit around the side. So yeah, so I love it. In so many words.
I completely relate because I fell in love with the technical aspect of video production, and that's kind of what that's what fuels me, like the curiosity of combining so many different pieces in a unique way to create an image that no one else has done before. And like I love it because there's so much that I have yet to learn, and there's so many different ways I can do the same thing. Like I can light this podcast in like a million different ways. But based on what I have, this is how it's been done today. But I totally relate to that. I love shooting handheld. There was a point in my life where I was terrified of handheld shooting and manual focus.
Me too, yeah.
And now I'm like a spokesperson for both of those things.
Well, that's another thing. I don't have autofocus anymore. So I'm just like full on. Mind you, I have a set of Cine lenses that I've been using for the past 2 years anyway. So I haven't been using autofocus really for a lot of things.
I like it. It is about that full control. I shoot a lot of real estate. I shoot it all handheld except for the drone stuff outside. But there's something very like, I find it's like welcoming to that handheld look. You feel like you're you're there, you're viewing it. It's not perfectly flawless, gimbally.
Yeah, you're not like behind the action, or you're in it. Like it puts you in the action, and I find it's a little bit more emotive. Like you feel a little bit more. I don't know. Like I always like try and evoke some sort of feeling. What doesn't matter what kind of feeling it is. I just have to feel something about how I'm shooting.
Yeah.
Or what I'm shooting. And I think too, like, going back to style and stuff, like, and doing the corporate sort of branded video thing. I think what sort of keeps my clients happy, and I do like with 80% of my clients, I have a recurring, they're long-term clients. It's like a recurring shoot relationship. And they know what they're getting, and, you know, they give me just enough leeway to be able to produce stuff that makes me happy as well. And I think having that a little bit more of an edgy look, and doing that sort of more organic cinematic kind of style, but in a corporate setting, is kind of what keeps them interested, you know. And
That's cool.
I think it's fun because it keeps me interested too, right?
Yeah.
Like if I had to do like cut and dry corporate videos,
you wouldn't be probably doing this.
I wouldn't be doing it, but that's another thing too, where like I draw the line between videography and cinematography is when you're trying to, videography is you setting up a camera and you're doing all the technical things to capture what is going on in front of you, like be it like an event or excuse me, like an interview or what have you. But cinematography is when you sort of go that extra step and you try and make it look a certain way to make people feel a specific way about something.
I like that.
And at the end of the day, that's what's going to sell your client's product better. Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to sell stuff for our clients, right? For the most part. And whether it's the questions you ask or the lighting setup you do, that can have like a drastic impact on like the overall sort of like sort of mood and like vibe of the video. Yeah.
I've never actually had that differentiated videography and cinematography. I always say I do video production because it engulfs, like it captures like drone video production, corporate video production, real estate. But I guess it's cool that you say, so it doesn't really matter about, if you can do cinematography with a phone, video camera, but then if you're curating the lights in the environment and you're manipulating it to get a certain feeling, that's cinematography, right?
Yeah, it's having that sort of vision of how things should look. And like I don't even think I have a vision necessarily. I think I just have I experience like physical discomfort. Like if something on set's not working and I'm just like, I don't know what it is. And I'm like pulling my hair out and I'm like racking my brains. And like sometimes it'll be like, just like tweak a light a little bit. Like last week I was working on set with my I say my buddy, but also coworker Kevin. And he was like, we flipped the set like 3 times, like the lights, we flipped the key, we did all the stuff, and like it was just not working. And like he could see like my gears were going and like there's like steam coming out of my ears and I'm like trying to figure out like what's going on. Yeah. But yeah, so I think then that's kind of another thing that like I like it and I don't like it is like if something is bothering me on set, like in terms of aesthetics and it's just not looking the way I want it to look, like I will not necessarily rest until it's resolved to some degree.
Like sometimes you have to compromise.
Oh, there's always compromise too, but sometimes like there's just things where I get hung up on, and it's it's
that is cool.
Gotta get fixed.
Yeah. So then for people that I feel like this term is maybe not understood, like cinematographer or a DOP, can you tell me what like that role means?
I don't want to mess this up.
I mean, if you don't have the ultimate definition, like what does it mean in your world or in your experience?
Yeah. And so, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about, whereas like you are the one who is manipulating the image. You're giving the image that sort of like flair, the mood, like you're the one who's trying to like, from the environment at least, evoke some sort of reaction or emotion in people via lighting and camera movement and lens choice and that kind of thing. Whereas director is more so directing the talent as to what they're doing in order to best convey that as well, right? So
cool, yeah.
And I think that kind of makes sense.
That does make sense. I mean, I look at TV shows and movies, I'm like, oh, the cinematography is beautiful. Yeah. My girlfriend's like, what?
Yeah,
like, did you see the key light in the window? She's like, what?
I can't rest anymore when I watch movies, man. I'm like, I'm instantly like on the web, like, what was this shot on? But it's almost gotten to the point too where I can like actually pick lenses out. Like I'm like, oh, this was shot on these lenses.
That's pretty cool.
I recognize it, you know? Some lenses are very recognizable.
Like a Cook lens or an Atlas.
It would be Atlas lens or like some like Hawk V light lenses. Like those have a super distinct look. Or like the Arri Prime DNA lenses have a really distinct look. Like season 1 of Euphoria was shot on those.
Was that shot on film?
Season 2 was. Season 1 was Season 1 was like an Alexa or something.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice, man. So then, Chris, where do you get your energy to do this and your inspiration? Like, is there anything that fuels you forward or inspires you?
Yeah, as far as inspiration goes, I do watch a lot of movies and TV, so I'll take things from that I want to sort of try and implement in my shoots, even though it's on like a much smaller corporate scale. Like you do see things and you're like, oh, it could be interesting to try using some mirrors, maybe like a CLRS setup where like you take a spotlight and you bounce it into a mirror and you bounce it somewhere else. And there's just different ways to like manipulate things. And like the more tools you have to make like a boring room look cool is kind of, it works in your favor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think like, I also get inspired by the people that I'm shooting, if that makes any sense. Like, it doesn't happen all the time, but like sometimes you're doing a shoot and you're just like, this is so cool. You are such a cool person. And like, I'm super happy to be here. Like, just being able to like ask you questions and like showcase you doing what you do best, essentially. You know, like we filmed something for Carleton University where this guy, he makes like AI for robots that go on the moon.
Wow.
Yeah, or in space or wherever, anywhere that, anywhere where it's hard for communication, essentially. Like it could be like underground, like, or under the ocean or whatever. But he was super passionate about it, and it was really interesting to like hear somebody who's really stoked about something talk about it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that, and that's what I love about the whole space of video. It's like I feel like I enter doors of different industries. Like I enter through weird doors into these corporate realms, these businesses, these kind of things that are happening that I would have never otherwise been, or I wouldn't have learned about that stuff. But through video, through cameras, it just takes you to those places, and it's cool. I see a lot of similarities in the way you view things and the way I view things, so it's pretty cool.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
glorified videographers.
yeah, exactly.
No, just kidding. That's cool, man. So then, is there anything? This could be cinematography. Is there anything you have like just unlimited energy for in your life?
Yeah, I mean, cinematography takes up a lot. Like I need to have other things going on in my life. Like I do a lot of mountain biking. That's like one of my
downhill or
down enduro. So you don't take the chairlift, but you bike up, but you're focusing on the downhills. That's kind of your thing. Yeah. So
I've always wanted to get into that.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Where do you do it?
Camp Fortune, Gatineau Park area. Like I live really close to the Gatineau Park, so I can just rip in there and
go right from your house there.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So I love doing that kind of stuff. And like I have a mountain bike YouTube channel as well that has gotten some.
Can we link it? Can we
go for it. It's capital
down.
MTB. Yeah, that's sick. So, and I meet so many people who know me through that too. It's just kind of embarrassing sometimes. Like we were doing a shoot for the Ottawa Hospital Foundation, and it was catered by Kettleman's, and the Kettleman's truck showed up, and the driver's like, "Hey man, I don't mean to be weird, but are you the mountain bike guy?" And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah." Anyway, so we chatted about bikes and stuff, and then he messaged me like a couple days later. He's like, "Thanks for being so cool." I was like, "Man, I like whatever." And of course, it's mountain biking. It's the best.
What do you do on that? Like, are you talking about how to mountain bike, or what's the?
So
idea?
I do have my instructor certification, but I haven't gotten into that yet. It's more so like gear reviews, like POV style, like GoPro videos, and like trail previews. I did some sort of like travel stuff last summer.
Nice.
Where this really cool guy put us up in his place just outside of Quebec City, right? Like ride in, ride out on a really cool trail network. And
nice.
I took some drone stuff there and filmed like a little like vlog style couple day video thing. And,
yeah.
I mean, in a perfect world, I'd love to do that for a living. It would be so fun.
Mountain biking, yeah. Make it cinematic.
Yeah, but I've got a couple little mini docs for mountain biking that are lined up, and that's part of the reason I got the Red camera too, because the Red cameras are very like. They're kind of known as like sports cameras, or like, that was like ski videos back in the day.
Are you strapping your Red camera?
Heck no.
To a mic?
No.
It's not happening, is it?
No, I mean, it'd be kind of cool. I mean, because it's got the global shutter and it's got the gyro information too. So you think you might be able to strap like an 11 mil or a 12 mil lens on the front and like, put it on your forehead or something.
Those crazy helmet cams.
Yeah, exactly.
The gyro stuff is insane. Like I shoot Blackmagic. I shoot on a Pocket 6K, and I had the camera for like a year and a half. Then they released an update. They're like, "Oh, by the way, this camera has a gyro in it. Now it's being written into the raw video
That's
data.
Crazy, yeah.
And you can stabilize your footage with the gyro data. Can you do that with the?
Yeah, you can do that with the Komodo now with the new. Use the beta firmware update, which that has like the low quality raw setting as well. So
interesting.
Yeah,
the Red. Cool. I've considered that camera heavily, and
it's
for the people listening that don't know anything about these cameras, some I have friends and colleagues like say the camera doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like gear's stupid. It's not about that. And then I'm like, but I like it's so cool.
It is and it isn't. Like, you know, you can say all you want about not being hung up on gear or whatever, but I do think at the end of the day, like you can buy the gear and not know what you're doing with it, and it's not going to make a difference. But if you've used a bunch of stuff over the years, you know exactly why you're buying that gear, you know exactly what it's going to do for you, then I think it's totally a valid purchase, and you can say as much cool things as you want about it. You know, like
justify why you just bought a $10,000 camera.
I'm not buying it because some YouTuber told me to buy it. I'm buying it because like in fact, like I watched so many friggin' videos on that camera and they all suck. Like, I'm sorry.
The videos on the cameras. Yeah. People just say amazing things about that camera, but
the thing is it came out and it was like, I mean, it's still really expensive, but it was the most accessible RED camera. So a lot of people bought them and a lot of people decided to film videos about them. And there's just so much like mediocre content filmed with it. Like there was nothing that I found on the internet that sort of told me that this was a good camera for me. Cause I was like, well, none of these videos look great. It's just some guy out in a field filming their dog or something.
Yeah.
You know? So it doesn't tell me a lot of stuff. Like I'm borderline, like maybe going to film a review on the camera and be like, if you were a commercial filmmaker or like somebody who's making like corporate branded video and you film a lot of interviews and shoot B-roll and whatever, like this could work.
Get the RED. It's cool. I've shot on a Red Dragon 5.6K. I like it. It does something to the client when they're like, oh, red.
Yeah,
that circle and the skull, and it's like it looks like, it kind of looks like a heavy duty piece of machinery with all those drilled holes in it, and
it's industrial.
Exactly. It's industrial and
tool, purpose built.
Absolutely. And I recently had some experience playing with an Arri Alexa Mini for the first time.
Yeah, I saw
and
that. Yeah. Awesome, eh?
It's such a it's one of the highest end things in the camera world. And then we started using it and I'm like, man, this is easy. Like this is literally just an excellent thing. It's designed well. It's intuitive. It's not complicated settings. And it's like I'm starting to understand that high end space and how it helps you as a creator, as a video creator, as a cinematographer, and it helps your crew kind of all work together. And they're cool cameras. And I shoot the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro because it is a very accessible version of all of that. It's a weird form factor, but
you still get raw video. You still get like some crazy good color science, and you know, as long as you know what to do with it, like it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm considering what you said about like the complacency. Like I can use that camera with my eyes closed, and it's an excellent camera. Like it does everything. But now I'm like considering, okay, I'm too comfortable with it. I'm always scared of accumulating large amounts of data. Like I have like 80 terabytes of backup drives.
I mean, I definitely have that. Like
I can't delete
somewhere.
footage.
Yeah, me either. I've got I've started writing it into things where I'd be like, yeah, I'll keep your footage for 2 years. After 2 years, it's gone.
It's gone.
But if you want to buy it now, you can buy your footage with a drive for X amount of money, and it's yours right off the bat. And that way, like, someone always has a copy of it. Because it's also like, I do have a few clients who like, oh, you know, we shot this like 2-3 years ago. Can we go in and just like use some of that footage? I'm like, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, and because they're gonna pay you again for it, and it's. Yeah, I can't bring myself to delete it. Like I operate off.
It feels bad.
SSDs, and I long-term store on like slower SATA drives.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, this isn't sustainable. I'm 3 years in, and I've accumulated like 80 terabytes of footage.
I'm probably there too. I'll text you. I think I have more than that. I'll text you a video of my drawer at home full of drives.
Of hard drives.
Plus like photographies. That's like 7 years worth of stuff. So
that's cool.
And it just gets more and more dense in terms of data. So,
yeah, you're just now you're shooting in higher formats and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Chris, what would you say is the most challenging thing about what you do with your work and, you know, your life and stuff?
I think the hard thing is saying no to jobs. I don't know if that's something that you get, but
absolutely.
Sometimes someone will come out of the woodwork and they'll ask you for X, Y, Z, and you know you'll be like, "Oh, there's a red flag there," but you know maybe or maybe it's like things are slow, and I'll take the gig and
regret it.
Yeah. So and as much as I say like I'm never going to do that again, it always happens, and sometimes. Anyways, this is my year where I'm saying I'm gonna actually like pay attention to the red flags and not.
Can relate to that.
Yeah.
The saying no is hard because like you want to do it, like your heart wants to do it, but your brain and the business side of things and it just doesn't always make sense.
Exactly.
That was a big one for me with shooting motorsports and racing. I spent the last 2 summers like I do high performance driving myself.
Oh, nice.
And I got into the world of like filming high performance driving and motorsports, and I love it. Cars are literally like nothing, that's my first passion. Cars, driving, building cars, all that stuff.
Oh, sick.
So I got into filming motorsports, but it came a point where I couldn't keep going down that path of filming motorsports in uncontrolled environments, dangerous environments, because it wasn't taking me closer to where I wanted to be, which was kind of building a video production company and developing like experiences and things like this podcast and like enabling experiences for people involved. And that's kind of what I wanted to do. And motorsports was a bit tricky. So saying no to that like hurt my heart, and I'll come back to it. But, going into this summer, first summer in like 2 years, I haven't not shooting at racetracks this summer. It's kind of hard. It's tricky.
Yeah. That'd be like me giving up the biking thing. And I'm always going to ride bikes. It's a question of whether I film my riding bikes or not. But because sometimes it does feel a bit tedious when like all you do is film all day, and then you're like, oh, I got to film my ride this week because I got to post something on YouTube. It's like,
That's true. It is similar because you want to ride the bike and be the rider and explorer, but then you make the content around it.
Yeah. What do you drive? What's your car?
So currently,
what cars do you have?
Cars.
I'm kidding.
I have a few. I have 4. Subaru Legacy is my like.
Nice. I saw. Yeah.
That's my work truck. They're sick. It's a work truck station wagon. Nice. Yeah. I'll check it out after. That's the work truck, and then I have a 2002 Jetta GLI.
Oh, right.
It's a VR6, so it's like they made this car for like 2 years. It's a front-wheel drive 6-cylinder manual thing that just makes exceptional noises. It's a 2002, so the car's pretty old. I bought it from the original owner when I was much younger. It used to be my daily driver, and now I'm like, I can't sell this thing because they don't exist anymore.
Is it a hatch? Or is
no, it's a sedan.
It's a sedan. Okay.
It's hard to find these cars anymore, so now it's just kind of like sitting in a storage unit. I'm still going to drive it, and then I have a 1991 Mazda MX-5.
Oh, wild.
That's the race car. Yeah. I also bought that when they were dirt cheap. I bought the thing for like, I'm not going to say.
The Miata, right?
Yeah, Miata. Yeah. It's the first generation, so that thing's 32 years old this year.
It has the flip headlights, obviously.
The best thing in the world. Nice. That thing is just like a time machine into the 90s. The smell, the sound, all of it.
My old roommate had one. I got to drive it a couple times. It was wild.
So that's my race car.
Nice.
That's kind of how I develop as a driver, because it's very analog and balanced, and it forces you to focus on your technique as a driver because you're not assisted by high horsepower or any sort of traction control, ABS, nothing.
Red Komodo.
It's the red Komodo of cars. Yeah. The Miata is the red Komodo.
Or the high-end cinema camera of cars.
Yeah. I love analog experiences.
Me too.
Because I mean, everything's so digital. I'm fascinated by the digital space, but I always go back to analog stuff. I shoot film, photo, drive a old race car, and then the fourth car, it's an ice racer. We bought like a Subaru Impreza wagon that wasn't roadworthy. It had a couple holes in the subframe.
Oh god.
Got it for dirt cheap, but it had a sick exhaust on it, so it was loud. And then we took it oval ice racing last winter at Capital City Speedway.
Crazy. We
were in like an ice oval with 20 other Subarus, and it was probably the most fun I've ever had in a car.
Sounds fun.
And that thing's sitting behind a shed at my sister's place. And
you have a nice sister.
Yeah, she's got space to. It's in a bush, really. It's sitting in a bush. So I mean, some might say it's an unnecessary hobby to have. That many things going on, and
I've got 5 bikes, so
okay, so you can relate.
I feel you. Yeah. but they're all individual tools, though. They all have a specific purpose.
Yeah, dude,
that's what I tell myself.
Literally, why do you need 3 cars? They all serve a purpose. Winter, summer racetrack, winter racetrack, summer daily. It's getting out of hand. I don't know because it's the same as getting rid of footage. I can't bring myself to get rid of these cars because they serve a purpose.
You're a hoarder.
I'm not. No, I'm not a hoarder.
There's a word for that, right? Yeah.
They're scattered all over.
I am too.
They're not all in one place. I'd love to keep them in one place, but logistically that doesn't make sense. But gotta go home and sell all the cars. You want to buy a car?
Yeah, good, man.
Yeah, it's the same as a footage. I have trouble letting go of things that serve a purpose and have value. And I mean, they're all old cars that I got for pretty cheap, and I fixed them all up. So it's not like they're a financial burden
Right.
per se. It is a logistics kind of challenge, and sometimes a really annoying one.
A physical, spatial, environmental.
Exactly,
burden,
yeah. You
I
move
guess.
them around all the time and
Yeah, yeah.
shuffle them around, and it's a fun challenge. I like
Yeah.
it. I enjoy it, and there's something inside me that I'm drawn to saving old shit boxes and making
Yeah,
them
that's
better,
cool.
because
Yeah.
they're just gonna disappear, and but it's
Someone's gonna use them. Why not? Why not it be you? Why it not be you? Anyways,
exactly. That's enough about the
My
shit
brain
boxes.
hurts.
Chris, what would you say is the most rewarding aspect of like what you do? I think we may have briefly touched on this, but
I think it's definitely the people you meet.
the people.
It's the people you
Mhm.
meet, the people you get to work with. When you find those like-minded people who you click with and you can produce things with, like,
Mhm.
I think that's super fun. Like Remy, for example, we worked on some really cool stuff together. We bicker like a little couple, like you wouldn't believe. But
you
yeah,
flow together, like you vibe. And,
yeah, we vibe, we
Mhm.
flow together, and it's fun. And when you meet those people that I hate saying employees, but coworkers, colleagues.
Mhm.
A lot of the camera ops that I work with, like Kevin is great. Kevin Nolt, killer dude. PL Arsenault, amazing as well.
Cool.
He's I don't want to say up and coming DP because he's a DP. He's just
Yeah.
straight up like really good. He just likes to work with me sometimes, which
Mhm.
I'm super lucky to have. And yeah, just the people you meet and the stuff you get to create along the way. I mean, the better the people that you're surrounded by in terms of just like, be it vibes or just good people in general, help produce good things.
Absolutely.
So-
It's cool. The people are the primary. They are the first thing in everything.
Well, you can't make video without people.
No. Dina,
Well, I'm sure people would argue that. I saw Adobe came with some AI stuff today, and I was like, Jesus.
yeah, it's freaky. Dina was saying this. Dina Elsewhere, she's a video director, screenwriter. We had her on episode 15, which was 2 episodes ago. She said filmmaking is about making friends.
Mhm.
And it's the kind of you can't make a film alone, you can't make a video alone, and at first I thought you can do it all, I'm just gonna do everything myself, and then I'm like, I cannot do that. There's some things you can do alone that you tackle if they're simple, but
Yeah, you
it
definitely need that crew, that support.
the people, it's fun. The people you work with on your crew, and then also the people you film, because you're taking these people out of their regular lives, and it's a special experience for them. I think Remy mentioned something about that, because doing like corporate headshot stuff, and how these people are in their office and then they're getting invited out to do a headshot session for their company, and he's like, why not make it crazy and cool and exciting, and it becomes more memorable like that.
Well, totally. And also, like, I think I get great satisfaction, or it makes me feel good, especially being someone who's more introverted, I'd say. I was never really like an outgoing kid in class. I never put my hand up to ask questions. I never did any of that stuff. So when I am able to make somebody feel comfortable in a shoot scenario, that like makes my day. Like, regardless of how the shoot turns out, like as long as they're comfortable and they're able to answer my questions, and a lot of the time I'm the one asking the questions in the shoots too, for some reason. I don't know if you get that, but
as like when you're directing a shoot, kind of like
just any shoot, like the client, like there's always an interview component, and more often than not in the past, clients used to ask the questions, but now they're like, no, you do it. And I'm like, okay. So
I love asking questions personally.
I didn't, and now I do. So
but I ask questions on a regular basis, because I feel like I love to learn from other people. It is another motivation of this podcast, because I feel like there's so much to be learned from other people, because now you're coming in here, you're sitting here, and you're bringing your years of experience, and I'm just like I'm having the opportunity to live through your stories about all the things you've done. So in my day-to-day, I love to ask people questions about themselves, because I find that's it helps get conversations going. Yeah. People like to talk about themselves. So if you ask them questions about themselves, they're going to talk, and you may not say a single word, and they'll be like, you're an excellent conversationalist. Yeah. And you didn't say anything. All you did was ask questions and listen.
Oh yeah. Some people like come on set and they're super nervous. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to be so terrible. And then sometimes I find it's helpful to ask like some random like bonus questions, just like get a conversation going, and then, one thing leads to another, and you've answered all the questions and they nailed it, so that's always really gratifying, and just to make people feel at ease. Cause like, I was never the most comfortable person in a social setting, so I get it.
Yeah.
So
totally, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Where do you then see like this industry, the video film industry evolving to, and how do you fit in, and where do you want to be as it grows?
I mean, I've got a good baseline going now in terms of just, recurring clients, and, I'm able to, work my creative muscle a little bit in those shoots. But I also don't feel the need to have to like chase down every job that's coming. So that leaves some pockets for some creative shoots.
Nice.
We filmed one the other weekend. We just rented a cool, some anamorphic stuff, some anamorphic lenses, pardon me. And, because the Komodo has an anamorphic function, which I didn't know, where it de-squeezes the camera. It does everything for you.
You can PL mount to that, right?
Yeah, you can
get
this
solid?
You get RF to PL adapter. You can buy different PL mounts that mount to the cage that make it really solid, but this wasn't super solid. But you can use lens supports.
Did you have to use rods and lens support?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I always do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw that video. The wheelbarrow.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And like, I have a buddy who makes some really, really nice leather goods in a crazy cool shop behind his house. And I just messaged him the night before. I was like, hey man, we got this crazy lens. Do you want to film this like thing? And so I got Kevin, I got Mike, Motion by Mike, who's on the podcast before, like Mr. Aperture, and he's there with his iPad with his like Sidus Link controlling all the lights and like putting light bulbs in. I was like, man, this is so sick. Like, just to have like people like this who are jazzed about doing cool things, who just like want to come out on a Saturday and like film for like 3 hours. And and the story we ended up pulling out of the shoot was good too. Like it's tough because you put a lot of pressure on yourself, like in those instances where it's like, oh, I want to film something that'll last, like that'll like, I don't want to just film something for the heck of filming it, and I'm happy that ended up being like a piece that I could show on my website if I wanted to. And
it's cool.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
Will
it.
Was super pumped.
Yeah, I can imagine because like, well, first of all, he's getting a free, really dope video. But it's an interesting story, and I love the sound design in it.
I went back and recorded some other sounds.
Yeah. I noticed, and it was just cool. It was cool to hear a story about a guy who makes stuff. And this one, it's leather stuff. Like it's interesting. So you want to do more of that moving forward. You want to do more of those kind of creative shoots where you're like, I have a dope lens to play with.
Yeah, or I just have a dope camera, or just a dope idea, like a cool idea to do stuff with, like. There's a lot of stuff surrounding like the whole mountain biking side of things that I want to do. There's like Vorlage, the ski hill, like up in Wakefield.
I didn't know they had a ski hill in Wakefield.
It's way up there. But so that's where I learned how to ski when I was like super young. But they're putting in mountain bike trails. So I'm filming a documentary on the making of the mountain bike trails there, and hopefully get something cool out of that. And then there's another mountain biking spot in Carp, which is on this like, it's called the Carp Barrens area, and it's just like rocks. It looks like you're on the moon, kind of. It's really cool. Like lots
is it
of
along
lichen.
the river? Or
Carp.
No, I'm mixing up Carp with Dunrobin. Sorry.
Yeah, but anyways, the guy who builds the trails there and advocates for them, he's a really interesting dude. And I was like, well, let's film a video about your process and like what this place is all about, because it's also very specific. Like you can only ride bikes there for like a month and a half in the spring, and then 2 months in the fall. It's closed during the summer because of like turtle breeding or something. Like
really?
Yeah.
Otherwise you crush the turtles?
It's a very like ecologically fragile area. So
wow.
So there's cool things like that. And then again, like you meet cool people. I always love doing like maker videos and like art videos. I've shot a couple for the Ottawa Art Gallery, which are like, those are great because you just get paid to film cool people making cool stuff and like, really interesting artists like who've been around the block like a few times, and they're like, they know what's up, and their stories are just fascinating, and then their work is like unreal. So, I think if you do stuff like that, you attract more work like that. So I'm just going to sort of keep trucking and see what comes out of it, and try and stay busy.
I look forward to seeing more of the stuff you do, because the frames that you have are really cool. Like the screenshots that you post of your work, it's cool to see it. They're very like they invoke a feeling in them.
That's what we go for.
Yeah. No, I
don't care what the feeling is, as long as you feel something.
As long as you feel something. That's funny. Because if you could do anything with no limitations, what is it?
Like just anything in
the world. No limitations, no constraints.
It's one of those podcast bonus questions.
We got a couple more of those. I have a funny one. I can't wait to ask you.
Oh boy. Okay.
No, I think you'll enjoy it. It's not.
If I could do anything. Oh man, that's such a tough question. Can we come back to that? And
we can.
Or are they sequential? Do we have to?
No, they're not sequential. They're honestly like all over the place.
I haven't had enough beers to answer that question.
We'll take a quick break. I think there's a brewery around the corner.
I had a heck of a weekend in Toronto.
Yeah. Was it I saw your stories. What were you doing in Toronto?
It was just my wife works for Shopify, so
Nice.
she was there for work. So I just went to meet up with her on the weekend.
Oh,
so
that's
after
fun.
her work, and then we went up for a belated birthday dinner for myself.
Nice.
And then
Happy
yeah,
birthday.
thank you.
That's cool.
So yeah, if I could do anything in the world, it would be like traveling and filming. I think like,
Mm-hmm.
but not like filming travel, more so traveling and filming interesting people all around the world. I think
Yeah.
that'd be really cool. Be it mountain bike related, be it
Anything.
I think anything.
Just cool
like,
stories.
If you film a certain way and you film a certain type of content, or I hate the word content as well, mind you. Content implies you're filling something up with something. Like it's just it's like volume. Content. But sorry,
It's fine.
the YouTuber that hates the word content.
It's thrown around quite a lot, but I guess it's pretty vague.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, that's a lazy term. It just implies stuff. It's
What do
like,
you prefer to say instead of creating content?
I don't know, work,
Make videos.
work. Yeah, anything.
Yeah.
Art,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah. Make art.
You know, it's not always art. Sometimes
Mhm.
it is content, like to fill your webpage with. You're populating something with your
Yeah.
content. You
That
know,
would be
it's like,
cool though. Travel the world with a motion by Mike lighting setup.
There you go. Or just with motion by Mike, you know.
With Mike.
We can bring our partners and
bring
go on a road trip.
All
Yeah.
the Aperture 600X or whatever they're called, and that would be cool.
Yeah, just meeting cool people and filming cool stories. Like,
You're kind of close to doing that right now, just kind of locally.
yeah, less traveling, but you know, I think the more you do it, the more avenues it'll open up to do that in the future, maybe. So
Absolutely. Do you have, Chris? Do you have any advice for aspiring DOPs or just kind of people who want to get into a similar realm that you're doing?
yeah, like I would say don't try and fast track it. Be patient.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's also kind of the detriment with YouTube and stuff. Like, because there's so much stuff out there, everyone thinks they can just fast track to just doing the thing. Like, you buy the camera, you're this person now. You can do the thing, but like you do
Just
have
happens,
to.
but it doesn't.
Yeah, and you know you can have a heart of gold and you can love it as much as you want, but if you don't have the technical knowledge to do the thing that you want to do, like this applies to everything, not just DPing or whatever, but. So yeah, meet the people that you need to meet, network like crazy. Like my buddy PL, he reached out to me through my mountain biking YouTube channel, and it just so happens that he was a DP, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're a DP too?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Did we just become best friends?" It was like a stepbrothers moment. And that guy reaches out to people like on Reddit. Like he'll go from like city to city and he'll just try and connect with all the filmmakers around town. And you know, so, you know, find people that you look up to and find people that are doing things that you like in a style that you like, and, you know, see if you can tag along, see if you can, you know, get some knowledge from them. Like Remy, for example, like he was like a fountain of knowledge for me in terms of like client relations and aesthetics and just sort of like general like business know-how, because he's like a very smart business person as well. And at the end of the day too, like, don't be a jerk. Like I'm taking this from Remy too. He probably said this in the podcast.
Well, it makes sense. You spend a lot of time with Remy, so
Yeah.
I get where.
And don't be a jerk and do good work, basically, you know.
Yeah.
And like, even if your work is not the best, if you are a nice person, odds are the client will have you back in versus having someone else who's like kind of like pretentious. And never make the shoot about you. It's always about the client. It's always about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Don't let your ego sort of like stomp that out, essentially.
Yeah. No, that's excellent advice. We live in a very fast-paced world where you get frustrated if a web page doesn't load in half a second, and we're very conditioned for that kind of fast pace, and myself included. I'm not any better. I am normally an impatient person.
Me too. Yeah.
I try to be better at it. I try to do things that slow me down and keep me, you know, presently here.
Yeah.
This is one of those things. This conversation.
This is cool. I really like this. I wasn't sure. Like I knew I was gonna like it, but like being on a podcast is fun because I consume a lot of podcasts, and I think podcasts are like a great format for people who like to.
No, sorry.
People who like to do stuff simultaneously. Like I'm an audiobooks podcast dude because I'm cooking. Like I'll cook dinner. Like I'm the cook in our household, and you know I go home from work. I'm still working. You know I gotta cook. I gotta do the stuff. So I gotta listen to something or read something at some point. So I'm all about the audiobooks and podcasts, and I find it's like a great way to get bite-sized info about whatever the heck. You know,
They're fun when you're like driving or
driving too. Yeah,
cutting up clips. I love like when I cut footage and I don't need
I can't do it. Oh, That's like,
Even footage that's B-roll?
No, I can't do it.
You can't listen to anything while cutting.
No.
What are you doing? Silence? Dead silence?
Oh, it kills me. It's soul sucking. That's the one thing I miss about photography and just doing photography is I could put on a Netflix or I could put on a podcast or I could put something on and have that going at the same time. But now I'm like, I need every single ounce of my being to like focus on doing video because I definitely have some sort of ADHD thing going on as well. So.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. Like a lot of creatives, I think, are in the same boat.
Yeah. Bouncing off walls, starting 5 things and
driving cars,
riding
bikes down.
Too many bikes.
Down
you have
mountains.
Too many bikes, Chris.
Yeah.
And I have too many cars. Yeah, man, it's been fun to kind of chat with you about how you do things, what you do. I do see similarities, and I mean, in most people that we have on the show, I find that we're very much more similar than we are different, even though we are all doing different things. When creativity is kind of like in the forefront of what you do, a lot of us people who like to be creative, like we kind of share similar values and approaches. And it's interesting to explore, through this conversation as well, kind of how you do things. And thank you for being on the show. Thanks for your time.
My
to
pleasure,
be here, man.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Yeah, I have some fun questions.
Great.
There's one here I can't wait for.
Oh boy.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Nice. Bright and airy or dark and moody?
I'm gonna say dark and moody.
If you had to live your whole life, bright and airy or dark and moody?
Oh, okay.
This is just a follow-up that I just came up with.
Probably bright and airy then. I don't want to live in the dark and moody sphere.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Imagine you're going to sleep, trying to rest at night, and everything's just bright and airy, and you're like, I can't sleep.
Oh, that'd be bad too. I don't think there's a.
No, there's no way to live that. Yeah. Cancel that question. If you had to use one focal length of lens for the next 5 years, what are you using?
35.
Okay.
Yeah. 35 or 40. 35.
Didn't even hesitate. When I was writing this question, I thought 35 as well.
I've 35 is my favorite focal length, be it in APS-C crop mode or full frame. I could use it either way, but I love it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I wrote here mountain hike or ocean walk, but kind of.
Oh, I mean, mountain hike, I
mountain
guess.
bike.
Depends on the mountain.
It kind of looks like I wrote mountain bike here.
I always love a good excuse to roll my ankles. So.
Shit. So you prefer the mountains over the ocean?
I like both. Usually mountains lead down to the ocean.
Nice.
I don't know. So
you can see the ocean from the mountains.
Take some philosophical something from that if you want.
Yeah.
Where there's mountains
quote
there.
that. I'm sure Ryan will do something fun with that.
Oh God.
And then the final question here: if you were sent to battle, gladiator style, what camera tool are you taking as a weapon?
Oh man, that's a great question.
It doesn't have to be a camera. It can be peripherals.
It can be peripherals.
Whatever.
Yeah.
What's your weapon of choice?
Ooh. Probably the C-stand without the base. It extends and it's heavy. I picked one up the other day and I was like, yeah, that could work.
Just like the
just
ball
the
part?
that part. Yeah.
That's kind of, I was thinking like
or the arm.
The boom arm on a
C
C-stand. That is hilarious. Can you imagine like gladiator style battle where like someone's holding like a gimbal or like the leg of a tripod?
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of those things are meant to hurt the user, not the person not using them. I feel like every time I try and set up something for set, I like crush my fingers in something or
I know.
Got a bruise on my that was mountain bike related, but anyway.
Crush your fingers or pinch
like I said, I'm clumsy.
Skin.
Yeah, I got lots of.
It happens. I mean, it's quite a like setting up all the lights and moving them around. It's quite a lot of heavy duty things that go on. So
that's another thing too. If you're going to want to do the grip stuff, like obviously try and go to the gym and be fit because the more fit you are, the better you're going to be able to, the more energy you're going to have on set. So I definitely try and be as fit as I can to do what I got to do. It helps.
It helps with stability too, shooting handheld. If you have good core strength, you can hold a camera for longer and you're just kind of more stable. But gripping is I used to do a lot of gripping early on where I would just come in, shoot behind the scenes photos and grip and be double. And it was crazy, like 12 hours of work. And you're just like, it was physically demanding, but it was really cool because I'm just like sponge. I'm like absorbing everything. And then, so that's a cool way to kind of get into it. But
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks. That was a fun question. I like that. C-stand versus have a battle after.
Cool. What's yours? What did you pick?
I was going to say the boom arm on a C-stand,
okay.
like the part that goes up, but you have a better, I'm looking at a C-stand right now. That's why I'm looking over there. But the part that extends.
We can have a battle after this.
Yeah. Maybe a C-stand with like something on the top of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like a knuckle.
Yeah,
just a little extra.
The grip head.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's so many things you could
There's
use.
so
What
many
would you use? Let us know what you, if you were to go to battle and you had to
Oh
take
my God.
a camera, tool, a tripod, anything around the world of camera stuff. What are you taking as a weapon and why? Let us know in the comments. You can let us know. I think Spotify might be the only place you can actually drop comments, but just shoot us a message on Instagram and we'll feature them in another thing.
Well, let's spin that question. What would be the most helpful thing, just in general? If you were stuck on a desert island, you needed to like build something or make something, or like just have something for support. What would you bring?
Oh crap!
Spin it.
It's only one thing, or can it be like?
I mean, it could. Well, it's one thing kind of. It could be like a roll of gaff tape. It could be like
I feel like gaff tape could help, like bringing like a string of gaff tape where you can like actually use it to make a structure and stuff, because gaff tape's pretty strong. Either that or like what is it, like 6x6 frames and dollies and stuff, like just to build.
If you bring a silk, you basically have a lean-to.
Yeah, and then you'd have a beautiful set too, because you're diffusing
exactly. Yeah, you look so good under it, but I'm so lost and so cold.
Yeah, and there's no case. That's gold, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah,
thanks to the listeners. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, let us know what your favorite part was in the comments. And if you'd like to reach out, we have a Discord community. We have an email. All of that info will be down below, as well as Chris's info, as well as Midnight Hour Studios and the discount code. All of that will be down in the description box below. This has been episode 17 of The Creatives. See you on the next one.
Thanks, man. Rock and roll.